Hello everyone, this is Roxas1359 doing a bonus video for Mega Man Legends 1. In this bonus video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about the differences that I noticed while playing through Mega Man 64 and Rockman Dash Hagane no Boukenshin, otherwise known as Mega Man Legends on the N64 and Mega Man Legends for the PlayStation Portable. Throughout this one, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be comparing them to how the original PlayStation 1 version of the game was, whether they were better or worse, and some things that I noticed that really shouldn't be a problem. So, without further ado, let's get started. So first off, we're going to talk about the frame rates of the game, and I know some people probably do not care about frame rates, but this is actually rather important because the games do run at different frame rates. Mega Man Legends on the PlayStation 1 runs at around 30 frames per second. A few graphical hiccups and slowdown here and there if there's too many explosions on screen, but nothing too bad. Mega Man 64 runs at around 20 frames per second, which is rather common for N64 games. However, one of the problems with Mega Man 64 was it wasn't optimized properly, so it will dip under the 20 frames per second, oftentimes going down to 17 to as low as 15 for the most part when playing on an N64. This carries over actually into in-game cutscenes as well, which is rather surprising that something like that would happen. Now, as for Rockman Dash Hagane no Boukenshin, it runs at a standard 60 frames per second on the PlayStation Portable, actually, which is very nice. Just like the PlayStation 1 version of the game, if there are too many explosions on screen, it will dip a little bit below, but the 60 frames per second is rather nice. Second, we'll talk about the controls. Now, when going into Mega Man 64, there are two options that you can use. You can use the analog stick that is on all N64 controllers, or you can use the D-pad to still control Mega Man. Now, I opted initially to use the analog stick, simply because that's one thing that the original PlayStation 1 game does not have and is not added in until the PlayStation Portable version of the game. And what was the result? The analog stick is rather a little bit too loose. A lot of times I felt that I had to correct myself in order to be able to line myself up properly, and I had to switch the control scheme instead of using the control stick to turn left and right, which is what it's defaulted to instead using the Z and R buttons to turn and the control stick in order to move around. After that, I was able to move a little bit simpler, however, it was still a little bit of a pain because of the sensitivity of it. The D-pad worked perfectly fine, just as it does for Mega Man Legends 1 on the PlayStation 1. As for the PlayStation Portable version of the game, it has somewhat of the same problem. The game defaults you to controlling Mega Man with the D-pad. However, you can go into the options and switch it to actually use the analog stick. Both feel rather nice, but one of the problems is you'll have to change it to where one becomes the camera and the other becomes movement. So, if you want to use the D-pad but also want to use the camera, and you'll have to move your thumb off the D-pad onto the analog stick to move left and right to turn Mega Man with the camera. That's rather awkward considering the placement of the analog stick on the PlayStation Portable. If there was a right analog stick, I feel that this could have been mitigated easily, but then you would have to take your thumb off the thumb buttons, mainly the X, circle, triangle, and square. Now, controls otherwise, you use the C buttons in order to open doors on the N64 version for Mega Man 64. You use the C button also to lay down your special weapons and talk to characters. You could also use the A button to jump and the B button to go back. The PlayStation Portable version carries over the same control scheme as Mega Man Legends 1 in terms of the face buttons. The only difference is that lock-on has been changed. And this is where both the N64 and the PlayStation Portable version have the same problem as the PlayStation 1 version of the game. When you lock on, unfortunately, you are still standing still with no ability to move. The reason why it wasn't fixed for the PlayStation Portable version, I have no idea. That's a problem that really should have been fixed. Now, we're going to move into terms of graphical quality and general models. Now, compared to the PlayStation 1 version of the game, which is very janky and kind of old looking considering it's a 1997 game, the N64 version looks worse. Despite the fact coming out in 2000 and actually using the game pack that would boost graphical quality and the ability for textures, Mega Man 64 has very low textures, a very low draw distance, and very low polygon models for its characters, despite technically speaking being a more powerful system than the PlayStation 1. The PlayStation Portable version, since it uses the PlayStation 1 version of the game as a base, maintains the same graphics as its predecessor. However, it does have a slightly upped model for Mega Man himself, noticeably more touched up considering the old style of the old model. Now, in terms of music, this is where something big happens between the different versions of the games. Now, the original PlayStation 1 version of the game used CD quality audio and voice acting due to the fact that CDs could hold so much space. On the flip side, the N64 cartridges could hold nearly a fraction of that. So as a result, they had to compress all the audio in the game in order to fit the game onto an N64 cartridge. What do I mean by that? All the voice acting has been heavily compressed. I will put on screen right now an example of some heavily compressed audio.
What are you staring at? I'm not a circus clown or something. Go on, get out of here.
Yeah, that is some very compressed audio that you can tell. Same goes for the music. It is compressed, and in some areas, music is actually slowed down significantly. More so, though, the only tracks that are really slowed down that you'd be able to notice would be places such as Uptown and some of the ruins where the music was slowed down. On the flip side, we have the PlayStation Portable version of the game. The audio for voice acting is fully intact and actually adds in subtitles for the game, which helps out those who, might think that the music is too loud compared to the voice acting, which is a problem that all the Legends series seems to have, and has the similar music, but I believe, and I do not know why entirely, the audio is slowed down. On the PlayStation Portable version of the game, more so to where it sounds like it's a tad bit crunch. And the possibility for that may be that Capcom initially did not realize how powerful the PSP was going to be when compared to its competition, the Nintendo DS, which had been out for a year at that time. At the same time, the PSP was the first system to actually stream music for a handheld, so obviously, since the PSP port of Rockman Dash was released in 2005, they obviously probably didn't understand the full technical capabilities of the console. Unfortunately, this is also a problem with the Rockman Dash 2 port of the game, in which the music is also slowed down and sounds a bit crunched. One difference that's between all of the different versions of Mega Man Legends seems to be a specific building that is in the Uptown region of the game on Cadillacs Island. For some odd reason, there is one building in particular that would change depending on what version of the game that you're playing. If you're playing the original, and I mean the original Japanese version of Mega Man Legends on the PlayStation 1, the building is titled YAG, which is an acronym for an actual Japanese animation studio that's usually based on universities in Japan. Now, if you talk to the girl who is in front of there, she will actually give you a number that will connect you directly to that school. It's rather odd that they would include something like that, but when it was localized over into Western audiences for PAL and the United States and other American regions, this building was changed instead to being a game designer studio, and the girl in front saying that she wants to design games like Resident Evil. In the N64 version of the game, the building is completely cut out, with the girl instead pointing you in the direction of the hospital. No idea why the actual building was cut from the game, seeing as Resident Evil 2 was released on the N64, so they could have simply put in that she would like to make games like Resident Evil 2. However, Capcom felt the need to cut it out entirely. In the PlayStation Portable version of the game, the building is changed once again to being instead titled VAC, and talking to the girl in front will say, have her say that the building is a cooking school and that she wants to become a chef. While doing research for this game, I actually discovered that there are quite a few things that were cut out from it. More specifically, certain cut textures and certain cut graphics in the game that can actually still be found within the disc and data of the game itself. The first of which comes from the Cardon Forest, when you're going to the first Cardon ruins and you have to get rolled to the gate. Initially, there was supposed to be a green bloom bear boss there that you would have to take out so then Roll can get to the gate and break it down for you. However, for some odd reason, it was cut out, so as a result, all that's left are its unused textures. Another of the cut contents comes from the final scene with Bon Bon when he is on the flotation device. There is a small message that is on one of the textures that you won't see normally on Bon Bon that simply says, "See you again," implying that there was going to be a sequel to Mega Man Legends, or possibly a prequel in the way of the misadventures of Tron Bonne. So far, there's a lot of cut content from Mega Man Legends 1, but that's all I'm going to be talking about for this video, ladies and gentlemen. So, this is Roxas1359, and I'll see you guys next time.